Believe it when I say this. As Israelis were mourning their dead, including counting the abducted women and children due to the horror by Hamas, rather than come out in solidarity for them at this moment, or at least condemn the terror attack, there were some individuals in the Western world who were literally seen celebrating the massacre, and some even expressing support for Hamas. And soon, this anti-Jewish hate became all too visible for us to see. These women in London giggled and tore the posters of the missing people when the woman recording them interrupted, asking why are they doing this? This is about innocent children who are hostages with Hamas in Gaza. The woman in black just turned and shot back, what about Palestine?
Okay, what about the children in Palestine?
If you thought this was an isolated incident, this young man and woman pulled down the poster from a roadside of a child in Hamas captivity and threw the poster in the dustbin like it is some trash. But unknown to them, someone was recording across the street and recording this heartless act. When the correspondent Elad confronted the man, he just smiles and says, I feel good. Feel good about tearing down posters about a missing little toddler boy. That was not all. This video surfaced of students at a New York university, these young girls indulging in a similar act. I have just one question. Why don't you want the world to know that there are Israeli hostages in Hamas captivity? Barely a day after that massacre that took place on 7th October in Israel, such American universities were where we saw sloganeering for intifada, referring to an uprising or a violent rebellion, without a word against butchery of babies and so many who are still missing and held hostage. In California, a few days later, it appeared to get worse, as this woman experienced that even carrying an Israeli flag means you can get mobbed and beaten up. But if there was one aspect that caught everyone's surprise, was the statement from some student groups of prestigious universities like the Harvard that solely only blamed Israel for the attacks on Israeli civilians, and in fact civilians from other ethnicities and nationalities too. Not a word against Hamas terrorism. Imagine being a Jewish whose people are massacred and watching people around show no solidarity, instead kind of say, well, you deserved it. This statement soon developed into a firestorm. Some students distanced themselves and added that the statement was never even discussed with them. There was also the ire of future employers that could have acted as one of the reasons. Reputed law firms have reportedly taken back offer letters of students who have been part of such statements which were blatantly and simply anti-Israel and soft on Hamas as it appeared. While Harvard did clarify a few days later, but by then many had questioned the hypocrisy. This happened with other universities too. CEOs and business leaders, including the hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman, called out this bizarre behavior. Then Israeli billionaire Idan Ofer and his wife Batya quit the executive board of the Harvard. Then Wexner Foundation, founded by former Victoria's Secret billionaire Leslie Wexner and his wife Abigail, broke off ties with the Harvard University. That for the school tiptoeing over Hamas terror attacks against Israel. Similar instances were seen when investors and contributors now started to react, pulling back donations from colleges. A major donor at University of Pennsylvania, David Magaman, pulled the funding from college, saying he was deeply ashamed of the sort of association that was shown over the response to Hamas attack on Israel. Apollo CEO Mark Rowan also took the decision after speakers were seen at Palestine Rights Festival, and that the Israeli Jewish narrative was being denigrated. And I'm talking about millions of dollars that are donated and were pulled back. This is 2023, time that some of the colleges stop pushing out a certain nexus narrative, specifically at a time when many people can see that Israeli Jewish people are not being heard, are not finding the solidarity they deserved, at least in the past 1 week. And how hard can it be to criticize a terror attack on civilians, even if the conflict's history has layers attached to it? But worse, a video is now going viral of a Cornell University professor who appears to have said in the video that he was exhilarated, excited, energized, referring to innocent people being butchered in Israel on 7th October. Imagine being a Jewish student to such a professor, or to be surrounded with such people in a safe space like a college or university. And are we sure that this comes under freedom of speech, or is this hate speech really?
I have family there, and honestly, we're in pain. Our community was attacked.
The rise in anti-Semitism on our campus has been abhorrent. There were students who were attacked for speaking Hebrew and for hanging up signs denouncing Hamas. There are people over there who are cheering with Palestinian flags after women were raped. and stripped and then taken their dead corpses paraded through the streets of Gaza.
Reacting to this, one of the investors has made an important mark. He has said that professor like this should not be fired. But freedom of speech also means freedom for me as a Cornell alumni to close my wallet and calendar to support any activities of any institution where leaders are not using their speech and instead ensure that that speech is not being used to shame or condemn and have this orgasmic glee of pro-violent anti-Semitism. So people are clearly watching all of this and reacting to objectionable behavior. Then there were some pro-Palestine rallies organized in large numbers, which would be fine if we did not see this. These women taped paragliders on their back. Metropolitan Police in the United Kingdom released this footage asking for their identities. The context, you ask? Hamas terrorists came on paragliders to kill Jews or anyone they could find. Many said this did look like that they were supporting Hamas. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has clearly stated, I quote him here, "We have seen intimidating behavior and shameful anti-Semitism online and on our streets with attempts to stir up tensions. I say, not here, not in Britain, not in our country, not in this century." Good he said it. The survey by Community Trust United Kingdom has cited there are clear cases of anti-Semitism in October. While comparing instances from this year to the last, it was observed that such incidents have risen from 14 to 105 and offences of the same from 12 to 75. In reports from the United Kingdom, Community Security Trust also adds that the perpetrators of the anti-Semitic activities are using techniques like taking down posters of missing Israeli children, hostages, and even playing German military music outside Jewish synagogues. Remember that the Jewish community is known to have suffered the Holocaust and was almost exterminated. Many feel this is like a repeat of a similar horror to them. And then come the taunts against the community rather than solidarity from the world. Remember that Europe and the United States of America, basically where in the West, there is both the Jewish and the Palestinian population in fairly visible numbers. So both are aiming to this time push out their narratives. And the world is watching. So sure, go ahead, condemn a country's government, its politicians, its strategy, all those questions need to be asked. But was it really just that? Remember that 4 Jewish schools in London had to close when a call was given of Global Day of Jihad across the world. The Met Police had to be deployed to ensure the school's safety. Jewish kids were told not to wear the school uniform lest they get identified and possibly attacked by extremists. A school had red paint thrown at it. This was not just paranoia because a teacher was stabbed to death in France on the same day. Speaking of France, French President Emmanuel Macron has said, and I quote him here, that Europe is witnessing a rise of Islamist terrorism, he said, and all the states are threatened. This was during a visit to Albania after the killings of the teacher in France and 2 Swedish football fans in Belgium too. So this is all getting noticed. Google CEO Sundar Pichai has also said, and I quote him here, important to call out and stand against anti-Semitism at this terrible moment. It's never acceptable. Proud to sign this commitment to raise awareness and condemn this historic evil. But it does not seem to be ending. Now, this social media handle, Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, shared this video of an angry woman confronting this man who was writing the word colonizer on the posters of children who are kidnapped by Hamas. This is hate for a whole community and specifically children, not just Israel. Think again. Posters of missing babies, kidnapped, held hostage by Hamas terrorists, and someone writing colonizers on that. It is anybody's guess what those children are currently going through, young girls, infant babies, and their families waiting for their return. How can anyone mock them, want to erase them, is beyond me really to understand. But there is a comparison that has also surfaced. A Muslim boy, barely 6 years of age, was stabbed to death brutally recently by the landlord in America. It's a clear case of hate crime and was heartbreaking. Brutality against a child and for no reason at all. But we did not see the Jewish community celebrate it, organize rallies to justify or empathize with the murderer or try to understand the context of it. Jewish groups I saw condemned the killing too, expressing condolences because innocents killed, especially children, is a horror that cannot be and should not be justified ever. This is a war that is on. Many are dying, both in Israel and Palestine, both Israelis and Palestinians, other nationalities too. Hamas is using hostages as human shield. Hamas is using Palestinian civilians as human shield. Death toll is rising. hundreds of innocent people dead, injured, often with properties destroyed. Spare a thought for the hostages. Nobody knows the condition of especially girls and babies and elderly. So the one thing that we can ensure collectively is not to mock the grieving, not to taunt those who are down or stuck in this ongoing conflict. Because in a political dirty game that involves many big players across the world, from the Western side to the Arab world, as human beings, let's show some heart and empathy. Thank you for watching.